what I thought it was.
So we're here. This place has only been open for a few weeks and we're already starting to help build a clothing brand from the ground up. Super stoked. I started this print company for a lot of reasons. Many of those reasons were to set out and fix a lot of the problems in the industry that I found while building up my own clothing brand over the last couple of years. And now that I have this, building brands is something that I want this company to start becoming known for. Because I've already been there with a ton of the stuff that comes along with building a clothing brand, so I definitely have a much better understanding with what these people are trying to do and where they're trying to go and just how we're gonna make it get there. So yeah, my super good friend Chad, who actually used to live in this room, which is now my office years and years ago, he came to me with the idea of starting up a clothing brand, something that will be within the realm of the motorcycle industry, same as my own. Obviously, it's gonna have its own flavor, its own agenda. It's not really my place to talk about his brand, so I'll kind of link a few things down below, but I know one thing he does plan on doing with it is using it as a way to help downed riders, which is something I can definitely get behind because shit, I've been riding for like 27 years and like 10 of them I rode professionally. I'm old, and obviously over the course of those years I saw my fair share hitting the dirt and broken bones and blown out joints and concussions and all that stuff, and obviously a lot of my friends I saw get injured, sometimes permanently, sometimes even seeing them get killed. So I mean, this is something that I can definitely identify with and something I can get behind. So yeah, we've been talking about this thing back and forth for a few months now, and then finally last week himself and his friend Bobby, who he's partnering up with on this thing, they showed up here. We had a little bit of meeting about what they need to get done, what needs to happen here, what I can do for them, and they also had a few rudimentary designs and mock-ups for logos and clothing ideas for me to have a look at, which upon seeing them I knew right away that we definitely had to do something about this. These guys are not graphic designers, let me stress that right now, so I mean, it's a very hard thing to do, so what they did is more than most people can do, but this is the Rogue Lab, man. We take this shit seriously and we're gonna step your game up a notch. So I contacted my buddy Dan, who's a designer I've worked with many times in the past. We're actually in talks of him maybe coming to work here full time, but we'll get into that later. But him and I went back and forth on this thing for like 2 weeks. Clearly we can't film the design stage because that would just be impossible to do. It takes so many hours and so many different revisions, especially when there's two people working on it. One guy's doing one thing, other guy's doing the other thing. This guy's got an idea, that guy's an idea. Things are changing 10 times a day. It's impossible to do. But what we ended up doing was keeping the vibe and a few of the elements of the original logo and then doing what we do and making this thing super rad. I'm super pumped with the way this thing turned out. It looks badass. Dan did a killer job on his end. And we're not just delivering a logo, we're delivering branding here. We've got a main logo, we've got an alternate logo, we've got a few different kinds of types, and we've got all our Pantones there ready to go so that everything in this package and everything they make moving forward can be consistent, which is very, very important when it comes to branding, something that I had no clue about when I started and definitely wish I did, but I've gone through those struggles and now I know better, and now I can help my customers do it the right way from day one. And to get to this point isn't always going to be easy because when you get a bunch of creative minds going, sometimes there's going to be some clashing. There's just no way around it. Everyone's got their own styles, everyone's got their own ideas. So there were a few times where we had me and Dan over here, we had these guys over here. There was a few times where I had to come up straight up and say this sucks. There were a few times I had to fight for some things, or a few times they had to fight for some things. There was a lot of compromising going back and forth, but it worked out so well in the end. If we didn't have it that way, I don't think we would have gotten as good of an end product as we did. And when someone comes to me wanting my help with something like this, I'm going to give them no bullshit responses because, I mean, I wish someone would do that for me sometimes, so I'm going to give them the best possible help that I can with whatever knowledge I have and experience I've gained. So after that was all done and approved and they were pumped on everything, there were a few more pieces to the puzzle that I had to put together yet. First was the neck labels, which in this case is definitely a requirement because we're starting a brand here. We're not going to leave the old factory tags on the shirts. So what we ended up doing, which is very clean, flows with everything, we took the alternate logo, pulled out the initials, and replaced that with the size of the shirt itself, and there definitely looks cool in the end. Definitely can't wait to see these things printed because I think it's going to look awesome. And then I had to sit and make mock-ups of clothing over and over and over again for probably an entire day so that we could figure out exactly what they wanted and what they wanted their first line to look like. What they wanted were some men's tees, men's long sleeves, women's tees, women's tanks, and some hoodies. So I went back and forth with a whole bunch of different mock-ups using those graphics that we came up with, testing them out in different placements, different sizings, and so forth, different arrangements of them. I don't know, I probably created like 40 or 50 different mock-ups to get to where we're at. And creating these mock-ups is so crucial and so important because it gives a customer a solid visual reference of what their stuff is actually going to look like in the end. That way you both can get an idea for the print sizings and placements and colors and all that stuff, and kind of go back and forth and make all the necessary adjustments needed well before going to press, and they can see something that is as close to the real life version of what they're going to get, and they can sign off on it. Because believe me, you want them to sign off on it. You don't want to just do something out of your head or out of their head and they open the box later and decide they they don't like it and come back to you and say, I don't like this, you're gonna have to redo it. I've seen that happen. It's stupid. But yeah, that was the design stage. We're done with that. Let's go take a look at the final mock-ups of the things we're actually gonna make. Man, my printer sucks balls. Anyways, so this is the lineup they've got coming for their first drop in the next couple weeks. And what we did was we tried to share prints across multiple garments, and what that ends up doing is it drastically lowers your print cost. This is something that I wish I would have known in the beginning, because print pricing reflects heavily on quantities. So if we're able to share the same print across these three things, your quantity levels are going way up, and that means your cost per shirt on every single one of these is going way down. So that's a little tip for you clothing brand startups out there. But yeah, so first we got our men's tee, which is a 3-color left chest print of the main logo, 2-color back print of one of the type logos. Men's long sleeve, which has nothing on the front. It's got a sleeve print of one of the types, which is a 2-color, and then the main logo, huge, a 3-color on the back. A pullover hoodie, which is a big 3-color front of the main logo, and a type going down each sleeve in 2 colors. Women's tee, which matches the guy's tee, 3-color front, left chest, 2-color back of the type, and a women's tank top, which is a 2-color front of the type, which actually is going to only be a 2-color front. The little gear icon in the very back, nape of the neck area, we're getting rid of that entirely, because that was one print that couldn't be shared across other garments, so that one would have been very expensive to produce in a small quantity. So that one's out of there. We're only doing the front, which is less printing for me because I have a crazy deadline to fulfill here. This thing is gonna be a huge challenge for me. I'm not gonna lie to you right now. They dropped a crazy short deadline on me for starters, which, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I live for, man. I'm gonna do this thing one way or another. It's getting done. But every single print in this thing are 2 to 3 colors a piece, and there are 2 to 3 prints per garment going on. So I mean, there's a razor thin margin of error, and there are a lot of places where I can possibly fuck something up and delay the time. So I mean, it's not gonna be easy. We also have to print all the neck labels. We also have to heat press every single one of the prints on every garment, because that's something they upgraded for, because they're making a premium brand here, a retail level thing, and that step definitely pushes it up to that level. It's hands down. It's well worth the money if you're trying to sell a premium brand. That's something that you should definitely do with your stuff. And originally I was slated to do the whole folding and bagging service thing, so I could give them a nice finished product like this so that they could deliver to their customers, but they decided against that because the very first thing they're doing is like 2 days after picking this stuff up, is they're selling the stuff at a live tattoo convention where something like this isn't really necessary, which I'm thankful for, because it definitely saves me like a whole day's worth of time. So I'm probably still gonna do like 1 or 2 of them and put them in there so they can see what they're missing, but we don't have to do that anymore. And then there's all the firsts going on as far as the printing goes. You guys have been watching me learn every step of the way since I started this, which hasn't been that long ago, so I'll be straight up and say this is the most print intensive job I've ever done by far, and I'm a little nervous about it. And it's the first time I'm doing quite a few of these things too. I've never printed a hoodie sleeve before. I've got these dual leg sleeve platens that I've never used yet, that I'm gonna have to figure that whole thing out on the fly. And there's definitely quite a few things that's got me a little bit nervous, but at the same time, I'm fucking hyped. I want to do this. And that's happening first thing tomorrow morning. So we're gonna cut this one off here. Make sure you guys like this video. Click all the stuff down below. We'll see you tomorrow.